What I'm going to do is I would like to very briefly just introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Riaan Rademan, who have been very, very instrumental in and also maintained his personal relationships with his alma mater as a member of the advisory committee of the Department of Mining Engineering, and also a council member of the Faculty of Engineering, Built Environment and Information Technology. Mr. Rademan has an extensive CV, and I'm not going to go through all of that because then I will be doing the lecture today. But I do feel of highlighting a few particular points that I think should be noted. Riaan obtained his B Engineering degree in Mechanical Engineering in 1980, and then also after that an MBL at UNISA in 1978. He completed his advanced management program at Wharton University of Pennsylvania in the United States of America in 1995, and very proudly also obtained a private pilot license in 2013. He's currently Executive Vice President, Upstream and Business Enablement at Sasol Limited, and was Group Executive of Sasol Limited from 2009 to 2014. He's Director of Sasol Limited Group Executive Committee, Sasol Mining, Sasol Mining Holdings, Sasol Canada Holdings Limited, and Sasol New Energy. Amongst the numerous awards that Riaan has received, he was honored with the Laureate Award from the TuksAlumni Association in 2013. This is the highest award that can be bestowed to an alumnus by a fellow alumni, so I think that's a great achievement. He has also acknowledged with the Global Coal Company of the Year Award at the award ceremony in New York in 2002. He's married with Wilma, and they have 2 sons and 2 granddaughters. The latter 2 are twins, which I think is a very proud situation. And we are very honored to have Riaan here today to address us. Before I'm going to ask Mr. Rademan to address us, allow me to just mention that after this lecture, we will have breakfast at our Adler's restaurant just a few strides from here. So I would like to ask you that you join us, and I will ask my lecturers and the students that's available here with us to just show you the way to that venue. So ladies and gentlemen, it's now a pleasure for me to request Mr. Rademan to address us on driving profound change, the role of leadership. Thank you very much, Riaan.
Good morning, can you hear me? Dear Program Director, Prof. Straw, dear Organizer, Ms. Tasha Pelser, dear fellow alumni, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. And let me also say it's wonderful to see colleagues and friends here this morning, some Sasol colleagues. When I received the invitation to talk to you today, I was at first humbled, but then very quickly pensive. What topic should I pick to talk to you about? Because I would not put me in the league of an academic, so I'm much more an industrialist. I decided to choose a topic that I'm passionate about and that encapsulates the learnings from my 34-year career at Sasol, and that is the role of leadership in an organization. Now, to bring this topic to life, I thought about sharing with you a recent story of driving profound change, and this is when leadership is most needed and most tested. And this story is the transformation that Sasol just went through. We call it Project Phoenix. Now, every company, like this long-lived bird, the phoenix, needs to be cyclically reborn. Associated with the sun, a phoenix obtains new life by arising from the ashes of its predecessor, or for a company from its people and its assets. But before getting started, it might be worth defining what leadership is, like any good student would do. For me, and I'm here stealing the words from Warren Bennis, a pioneer of the contemporary field of leadership studies, leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Hopefully the next 45 minutes will help bring this to life. Sasol is a very well-known, I wanted to say popular brand in South Africa. So what you see on the slide there is our global footprint, where we believe that we are flying the South African flag very proudly. Sasol has exploration, development, production, and marketing and sales operations in 37 countries globally. Across the world, we employ more than 32,000 employees, and I must say we are a very proud South African company. So this slide is the beginning of my little story, but it's a very important slide, and you will, through the discussion this morning, recognize and realize why. And I'd like you to sort of memorize this, because this is the exam question. Because this is what we as a group executive at Sasol had to solve. So in my business day studies, when I did the MBL, this would be a typical problem that you would have to solve, and we're going to talk about this. At the end of 2012, the Sasol group executive realized that despite writing record profits, the situation was unsustainable. And as I said, this was the exam question to solve. Costs were increasing 4% per annum above inflation, and this was being masked by the rising oil price and the weakening rand, because we make our fortunes, as you know, by the rand oil price. So let's just have a look at this graph. You can see at the bottom our fuel machine in Secunda. Those are the annual tons. And this is the cost annually, and that's in nominal terms. And if you do the compound average growth rate of the costs over the period, you would see that it would rise at 11% per annum. And this inflation line is at 7%. So we knew as a group that this is not sustainable. Why? Because it's a commodity business. In a commodity business, costs, productivity, margins are all important. But what helped us here a lot was the tailwind of the oil price. And I can recall that when we had the discussion with our colleagues to say that you don't actually see this because you have the oil price helping you. But if that tailwind turns into a headwind, you're going to have a problem. As a pilot, I learned quickly about headwinds and tailwinds. And that happened not too long ago. The oil price dropped from $115 overnight, literally overnight. I saw yesterday closing price was around $57 a barrel. So overnight, if I take your revenues and I halve them, and you haven't done something about your cost, I can tell you, you have a problem. So it's not that we had not tried to fix it before. On several occasions, we had looked at cost and taken what we thought were the right measures. However, costs seem to inexorably just go up. Now, what the bean counters will tell you, the problem with fixed costs, it's fixed. So it doesn't change with volume. So if you don't take it out and your volumes decrease, it's there. That's the nature of cash fixed costs. They are cash and they're fixed. So you have to do something about them. And you can't just pray about it. You have to do something about it. So skepticism about cost reduction programs was widespread across the organization. As one business unit managing director said at the time, we have a cost containment project or restructuring every other year, but we're not learning from our experience. This is the feedback we got. With every failed change program, the likelihood of the next one to succeed goes down. So, how do you solve this? And this was a huge challenge for us. So let me deal with it. What we started to understand at the end of 2012, and more so the beginning of 2013, is that rising costs were just a symptom. The underlying root cause was complexity. So we decided to tackle complexity decisively and also sustainably. This meant that leadership had to fundamentally shake up the organization and explain why this was needed at the time of record profits. Because we warned, if the headwind would come or the tailwind would change into a headwind, you're going to have a problem. When tackling complexity, two things are important. You need to take a holistic view at complexity. Business complexity, for instance, what is our portfolio? What is our operating model? Organizational complexity, how we are structured, how do we make decisions? And process complexity, for example, fit for purpose. You need to address complexity in a sequenced way. You first deal with business, organizational, and then process complexity in that order. It wouldn't make sense to tackle the procurement process, for instance, if the operating model is fundamentally flawed or the procurement function is completely divorced from the business reality. The other problem that we have, and I think in the group we have about 250 PhDs, mostly engineers, and the problem with engineers is we love complexity. And complexity creates activity. And activity needs resources, and then resources creates more complexity. And when you try to solve it, they say, no, you can't solve this. Let's make it a bit more complex. Then everybody around, so that the engineers can be busy, and and I'm a proud engineer as well. At the end of March 2013, we were clear about the key issues driving complexity, the key actions to address, and the size of the prize we wanted to go after. And the size of the prize was to get your cost back in control below inflation. Now, getting leadership aligned throughout the group on this was fundamental to build a robust foundation for the change to come. Now, this is where we onboarded the management consulting firm, Bain & Company, to help us answer this question. They have been the lead consultant on the program and continue to support us. And let me also then introduce Dr. Torsten Lichtenau. Torsten, welcome. A partner with Bain & Company in London, and his colleagues have been supporting Sasol and me personally throughout this journey. And let me just also say, the results that you will see, it's not just mine. I had the privilege to be the group executive sponsor for this. But under the leadership of the CEO, David Constable, and the whole Sasol team, this is what made these results possible. The most important action to reduce complexity was to completely overhauling of our operating model, the complete overhaul of the model. We had created multiple BUs over the years to drive growth. While we had been very successful in growing the business, this also created multiple silos in the organization, and we were very much busy doing business with ourselves rather than focusing on the market. That we were extremely good at. In the meeting, to talk about the meeting, and then you talk about yourself in the meeting, and then you talk about another meeting you're going to have about the meeting you just had. So this is how we kept ourselves busy. When people hear the word operating model, they often think it's just about structure. Actually, it's much more than that, so it's not just about structure. Beyond lines and boxes, you need to define who does what, accountabilities, who decides what, the governance, and how we work together on a day-to-day basis as we define ways of working, and we'll get to that in a moment as well. You also need to enable the operating model with the right people, the right processes, and the right technology, and here specifically, we focused on the IT technology, and I see my colleagues from Deloitte are here. Anton Wouters is our lead partner there. The new operating model is much simpler and more focused. Now, we reduced the number of business units and functions by more than a third. With approximately 1,600 employment separations, either through voluntary retrenchments or early retirements to date. If we compare our top management layer of February 2013 to the top management layer of today, we have seen a 61% reduction. In the past, Sasol's top management not only consisted of individuals with broad management accountability, but also included subject matter experts, project leads, and other senior specialist roles. In simplifying our decision-making and governance framework in 2014 and in clarifying accountabilities and sharpening reporting lines, our management strata is now much more tightly defined. As I said, a reduction of 61%. The most important lever to pull, but also the most painful one, was streamlining of structures, meant letting people go, even long-time friends. We had to say goodbye to them. Yet again, leadership was critical to stay the course while also stabilizing the organization at a time of uncertainty. Beyond making critical decisions, we spent a lot of time as leaders in conducting town halls, talking to people, eyeball to eyeball, explaining what's happening, and also to calm down the organization. What you will see here on this slide, reduction in complexity in essence means reducing activity. People don't come to work the next day and are 30% more productive. It just doesn't happen. That's a wish. So you need to either do less, you have to do it better, or you do it once, or you do it in the right place. Now, leadership set the tone in focusing activity on what adds value for the business. An adjective we started to use very often was fit for purpose, not world-class and not best practice, because people get confused with those, because those cost money. Fit for purpose, we said, would be the right one. We started with activity reduction at corporate level. So let me give you a few specifics. Firstly, we consolidated the legal structures globally, moving from 72 legal entities in South Africa to only 4, and from 250 subsidiary companies to no more than 50. This tremendously reduced work for our finance, legal, and admin departments. I had to fire myself from 10 boards, because we had too many boards. We just love board meetings. We create board meetings, board papers, and then you submit more board papers and keep lots of people busy, because it's important. The board meeting is important. Well, we scrap them all. Secondly, we streamlined our corporate committees. We used to have what we call syndicated accountability. So you make a decision, you don't take the accountability because there was a committee. So the committee takes the accountability. It doesn't work that way. You take the accountability. We changed that. With most decisions made at the top and in committees, as I said, we realized that this was diluting accountability. To change it, as I said, we reduced the number of corporate committees from 24 to 9. We reduced the number of participants. So if you're in the committee and you don't have a role to play, then we would like to know, why are you there? Because you're wasting your own time and you're going to waste other people's time. Reduced the participants, as I said, clarified decision rights, and moved where possible to a single point of accountability. So when there's a decision made, we would like to know who made the decision, because you own it, you take the accountability. Things go wrong, we're going to eyeball you. The impact on leadership was tremendous. We are spending 60% less time in governance meetings than we used to. And we are able to use the freed up time to focus on managing the business, get to the people, get to the customers. We also have a saying to say that a desk is a very dangerous place from which to view the world. It's extremely dangerous behind a desk. Get to your plant and get to your people. This is one of the reasons why we were so fast in formulating a comprehensive plan to conserve cash in response to a potential lower for longer oil scenario. In this instance, some very interesting statistics that happened during this time. $1.5 trillion US dollars moved from the hands of the producers to the consumers. So when the world companies complain about the world price, people just remind you of this statistic. You probably have seen that at the pump as well, but maybe that will change soon again. So one of the key enablers of simplifying our corporate committee landscape was clarifying how we make decisions. And this is the so-called, and it's the IP belongs here to Bain & Company, it's the so-called RAPID, R-A-P-I-D, decision-making method. We started by agreeing principles, for example, pushing down decision-making in the organization and have a strong bias for single point of accountability. So we've given the senior vice presidents, the previous managing directors, they make the call. If things go wrong, we'll have a discussion with you, buddy. Nobody else, not your committee. I don't need the committee. I need you. You made the decision. Or you were in charge when the decision was made. The RAPID methodology we used to do so was very helpful. There are clear roles for each individual involved in the decision making. For example, who gives input, who recommends, who agree, who decides, and who performs. And more importantly, there can only be one recommender. So I don't need 10 in the meeting, I need one. I need one decision maker. You're going to make the decision. If you're the chairman of the committee, you're accountable. This meant a huge culture and behavior change for us, but has vastly increased the speed and the quality of decision making, because you take the decision close to where the action happens. I don't need to second guess my senior vice presidents. They know the business. I appointed them. Things go wrong, we have a discussion. We also reduced wasteful activity at the coalface. A very good example is the permit to work process. A permit is what we issue to a contractor before he or she starts work with a potential risk impact at Sasol. Given we use many contractors and service providers, this process has a huge impact across the company. In the first pilots, we have streamlined the number of permits by 50% by issuing permits only where they truly mitigate risk. So if there's no risk involved, you don't need all this paperwork. Let the guy get on with his work. As a result, risk management has improved as well as efficiency. No waiting time for contractors and effectiveness. Pre-work was completed the previous night. This is allowing us to reduce substantially external time spent and internal workload. And this happened by reducing it by 1/3 during the pilot. Fundamentally change, and obviously you can imagine what happened to productivity, because people actually work. They don't wait for paperwork. They get to work quickly. Fundamentally, changing an operational process like this requires to get the full support from leadership. In this instance, our executive vice president of the South African operations, down to the foreman, he had to buy into the process, and then it was driven down. And then you need to start by identifying who will be impacted, foreman, and ensure that every layer from the very top down to the front line is supporting this change. And don't second guess it because we decided it. So just do it. You are only as strong as your weakest link. This was tough. Let me be the first one to say this. Managing a change of this magnitude is like going through a journey. As leadership, we knew it wouldn't be easy to manage the typical highs and lows of change. When we started, there was quite a bit of skepticism, obviously. Many people were happy with the status quo, given where we are doing financially well. We all love to live in the comfort zone. If I start pushing that zone, that's when people get uncomfortable. Leadership was critical in that stage to move the organization, because it meant leadership need to get out of their comfort zone as well. The organization started to get excited, but also nervous. When in late 2013, the first changes in the operating model were announced, the excitement persisted through 2013 and the first half of 2014, leading to what we refer to as day one. Day one was when this new operating model on July 1st came effective. However, at the back end of last year, some parts of the organization started to show change fatigue, because this takes a lot of energy. And we had to make a lot of tough decisions. And this can obviously lead to missing the full potential or outright failure. Here again, leadership, helped by the drop in the world price, established the need to follow through. I take away half of your revenues overnight, promise you that will focus the mind quickly. While we are not yet at the end of the journey, key milestones are being achieved, and this is showing through in our financial results, as you might have seen earlier this week. Monday morning, we announced the half-year results to the media and the financial fraternity. And obviously, we had a good story to tell. To get there, we didn't leave the implementation to chance. We surveyed on a regular basis and in a structured way who was supporting the change and what specific change risks are more acute by layer. This enabled us to tackle the right people and the right topics at the right time. For example, on this picture, you can see that the leadership down to CEO -4, and in the Sasol terms, we now refer to them as GC4, is fairly aligned on the program. What was actually important was to double down on the CEO -5 and below, since they were much less supportive than the rest. And it was quite easy. We asked them, how likely are you to encourage your colleagues to support the project? You're the leader, so do you support this? If it's 10, it's fine. Where 0, it's extremely unlikely. And a promoter, then the score would be between 9 and 10, and then neutral 7 to 8, and then a detractor means there's a problem from 0 to 6, and obviously you would then start discussing with the leaders, what is this? As leadership supported by our results delivery office, led by a full-time senior executive, we have a very competent senior vice president driving the process on a full-time basis with 10 or so colleagues. We started a significant communication effort, energizing the organization throughout compelling top-down communication. We've created what we refer to as a Phoenix newspaper and equipping leaders with tools to communicate to their direct reports, for instance, Toolbox Talk. We also started targeting interventions in areas of the business where we felt that there was an issue either with the colleagues or the leaders. One of the key points to get people on your side was to talk about behavior, but behavior at the top, not down in the organization, at the group executive and further down. We spent a full day to agree the top 3 behaviors needed in the new operating model and the practical implications for us and others, and how to enforce these behaviors on a daily basis. So let me just go through them quickly. You have to understand, contribute, and commit to the new operating model and business objectives. So we would ask the leaders, do you understand the changes? Where are we going? And do you know why? You must be able to explain that and commit to that. One Sasol, one bottom line. Globally. One company. I'm a team player and I act in the best interest of the Sasol group. It might influence my bottom line for this round, but it's in the best interest of the group. And then empowered accountability. I trust and I expect others to deliver, and I can be trusted to deliver against agreed accountabilities. No place to hide. This is what we agreed, what will be delivered, and this is what we're going to deliver. You promised that, and you make the same with your team. 2 days later, We then followed up with a big workshop with the top 50 leaders to get them on board, and you can see the signatures here. There's David Constable. I signed there, and my colleague Peter Steenkamp will also recognize his signature there. So you had to sign this. Our role as leaders went beyond it just defining and communicating these behaviors. It is now about role modeling them. You have a copy of this in your office. If in doubt, you refer to your, if we have a tough discussion, we take out the behaviors. So can we talk about this? Reinforcing good behaviors across the organization, but also tackling bad behaviors quickly before they get spread. Behaviors are really starting to move with a clear commercial impact for us right across the value chain. We see the effect of that. 2 years in, we have some results to show. Company-wide complexity reduction program is up and running. The new operating model implemented and being embedded, dramatically simpler, with a number of business units and functions streamlined by more than a third. Because if you simplify and you take away complexity, it's just amazing, because you just need to support this value chain. That's what it's about. Transform dynamic among the leadership team, with executive team and business unit function heads energized around critical behaviors. Time spent by executives in governance meetings reduced by 60%. It was extremely important for a colleague. If you ask him where you're going, he's either going to go to a governance meeting or to a board meeting. He will be out of the office for the day. You don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to be in that meeting. That's gone. Savings confidently announced to the market, and we'll talk about that in a moment, show cash fixed cost below inflation for the first time in years, and benefits beyond cash fixed cost emerging. Company on the front foot in responding to the oil price. If we did not have Project Phoenix and what we have on the table today, we would have been in serious trouble, because that's when you make decisions from the hip. Luckily, company is thinner, fitter, can move quickly, a lot of agility, so we could respond quickly. And then obviously the market liked what we are doing. So this is probably the biggest change in the company's history. And the current oil price drop has shown that it was absolutely the right thing to do, as I said. We've been able to respond to the oil price quickly and decisively, as I said, because of the simplicity. So this is the answer to the first slide. So if I was your professor marking your exam paper, and you do not have this slide, and you would have a problem, because this is what the market asks. So how did you do up to now? So let me just go through this quickly. So this is the implementation cost. This is cumulative, and it's money of the day. So cumulatively, we have spent on a running rate basis, this will be the cost to the end, will be 2.1 billion rand. And that cost includes restructuring costs. To date, it's around about 1 billion that we have put on the table. On an annualized basis, it's about 2.2 billion. And what we promised, sorry, what we committed to the market on Monday morning is that this number will be at a run rate of 16 onwards at 4.3 billion per annum. And also, because of the response plan actions that we've taken, we've committed a further 1.5 billion, which is about 6 billion per annum. And that will answer your first question, the exam question. You get your cost back into inflation. So just on a personal level, the role of leadership in driving profound change. And as I said, I'm not an academic. But this is what I've learned about leadership. It's leadership's role to appoint leaders. You cannot delegate that, and you cannot abdicate that. And if you've done that, and you made the wrong decision, you fix it quickly. And when you've appointed these leaders, you look after them, young or old, because they're going to make the difference. Get the right people for the right job. You can teach a duck to climb a tree, but if you want a real tree climber, get a squirrel. I saw that in my journey with IT. I saw that in the oil and gas industry, in the supply chain, where you can get the people that are not the squirrels. It costs you a lot of money, quickly. So make sure, and it's your job to get the squirrels in the job. And also, if they're a squirrel, make sure they have energy, because you cannot light a fire with a wet match. That's when you create dull teams. You need people with energy to do this for you. Treat people with respect every day. People come to work to make a difference. Try and see that. They don't decide this morning to come to work to come and destroy value. Recognize this, and you will be pleasantly surprised every day. Actions that get rewarded get done. Money alone doesn't motivate you, but it makes you move fast. And this is our experience with remuneration systems, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. If people perform, we have a what we call an individual performance factor. It varies from 0, and it can go as high as 150%. So we eyeball, you're going to get 150%, so we take your total guaranteed package times a percentage we've agreed, and it can go as high as 150% of that number. Or it can be 0, because what you've learned, that any number you times by 0, the answer is 0. So that is when you don't perform. Follow your instinct, and if your gut tells you that there's a problem, know that you should have acted earlier. Never be afraid to define the 7-letter word called reality. Not what you hope it is, would be, but exactly as it is. You always have 3 choices regarding the business. Fix it, sell it, or close it. You can't just keep it as it is. Fix the root cause, not only the symptom. Hard lesson. When you have a serious failure, find and remove the root cause for it not to happen again. If you have not found the root cause, it's going to come back. Promise you. And make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler. To solve a problem, move to a different level of thinking to where it was created. And the colleagues that organized the failure in their thinking, those are the ones that cannot solve it at that thinking level. You have to move to a different thinking level. So lastly, and this is my last slide, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And thank you for your attention. Thanks.